Good morning. I'm Dr. Steve Stites, Chief Medical Officer here at the University of Kansas Health System and Executive Vice Chancellor at the University of Kansas Medical Center. I haven't taken a breath, now I will. Welcome back to Open Mics with Dr. Stites. Today we're hearing the story of what it's like to wake up in a hospital, unsure of why you're even there.
I've been an elected official for 20 years, been around emergency services for that whole time. And it's not until you are the one in the ambulance and in the hospital bed that you really get a perception of how it really works.
How are you? That is Curt, Skoo, mayor of Overland Park, Kansas City's largest suburb. Mayor Skoo recently visited the health system to say thank you to the people who helped them recover from some serious injuries. I'm honored to have Mayor Curt Skoo here with me this morning in the studio. Sir, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks to many people in this room and in this building.
Well, you know, it's always a good thing to be able to say I'm doing great, right? I always like to say, I'm upright, I'm bipedal, I'm upright, and I'm walking. I figure that's a good day. So we're doing great, makes it a good day. All right, we're also joined by three people representing a much larger group of healthcare workers who cared for Mayor Skoo. Dr. Robert Winfield is a trauma surgeon and the division director of acute care surgery at the health system. Robin Prehosp is a nurse manager leading the nursing unit on Unit 51, our trauma unit. And Dr. Brandon Carlson is a spine surgeon who does a lot of work in trauma as well. But before we talk to them, Janine Kiesling shows us a little of what Mayor Skoo went through.
Overland Park Mayor Curt Skoo is grateful to be walking again after a serious car accident on August 24th left him with a broken spine.
My next memory is waking up in the trauma unit here.
Skoo was driving north on I-35 just before noon when, for reasons still unknown, he veered off the highway at Cambridge Circle and crashed into a ditch. He has no memory of the accident and learned details later from first responders.
I was speaking gibberish when he pulled me out of the vehicle.
Though he suffered no external injuries, Skoo had severe spinal fractures, requiring 2 surgeries at the University of Kansas Health System. The procedures, performed the Friday before and the Tuesday after Labor Day, set him on the path to recovery.
Well, it's scary when you break your spine. There was always the concern that maybe I'd be in a chair.
After 2 weeks in the hospital and months of rehabilitation, Skoo is regaining strength through physical therapy. As he continues to work on himself, he felt compelled to take time out and thank those who helped him heal.
I think the biggest surprise and what impressed me the most was the attitude of everybody that walked into my room. And I'm blessed with the care of all these people that I was able to walk out and stand here today.
The reunion was not only a moment of gratitude, but also a rare opportunity for the emergency responders, surgeons, and hospital staff to see the full impact of their work.
They don't necessarily see the patient either before their piece or after that piece. Everybody seemed to find joy in connecting with others involved in the process.
Mayor Skoo, do you have any idea of the why around the crash happening?
Well, we've been working with a neurologist to help me understand what it was. And so in the past few years, I've been having some bouts of deja vu is what my wife and I called it. And never had an situation where I was unconscious or unaware. But we were just tying things together, and that's the most likely this was a bigger incident of that.
Okay, so when we say deja vu, that's like a small seizure of sorts. It's like a seizure where you lose your concentration. You sort of, it's kind of, we call it a petit mal seizure, where you sit there and you just sort of lose consciousness. You're awake, but you're really not functioning.
Right, and I'd never had that incident around anybody.
Okay.
So I never thought that I was out of it. I just had some memories, and that's how it happened. You know, my doctor, my regular doctor, she scolded me when I told her. She goes, "Why didn't you tell me about these?"
Yeah.
And I said, "I never thought anything about it." My wife, Amy, and I would talk about it afterwards.
Yeah.
And so it's a lesson to those of you that are out there. If you have those kind of incidents, I didn't happen very often.
But they do matter.
They do matter.
All right, well, we're glad you're here. And what's the next memory? Is that when you were in the hospital?
Yeah, I woke up, I came aware. I guess I was never unconscious. I became aware in the emergency room when they were asking me questions. And the first thing I remember is them asking my name and who they could contact. And I remember giving them my wife's mobile phone number. She was working on her shift at St. Luke's Hospital. So that's my first memory.
All right. Well, just for our listening audience out there, just remember that saying that you are having a moment of deja vu is not a reason to not listen to your spouse. Don't try and do that. They'll figure that out. Dr. Winfield, help explain the process for receiving a trauma patient. Now, what is the pre-hospital communication with EMS like? Because there's a lot that goes into this.
There is. Fortunately, trauma is very algorithm driven, and our pre-hospital connections across the region are very strong. We have liaisons to each of the different agencies that work in Kansas City. What we get is a very standardized report from them. We have identified a male of approximately this age who's been involved in a motor vehicle collision. Here are the vital signs.
Yeah.
Here's their Glasgow Coma Scale, which is a measure of their neurologic function. Then they ask us, based on criteria that our emergency department folks have at the ready, to say what level of trauma activation does this meet. And Mayor Skoog's was a type 1 trauma activation. So
now this is a big deal because you want to always treat everybody the same, but you were dealing with the mayor of Overland Park. When did you figure that one out?
You know, I actually never knew until he came back to the hospital months later to thank the staff.
That's perfect. That's when you figured out he was the mayor.
That was the only time I knew, because in trauma we really do treat everybody the same. Absolutely everyone gets the same treatment from us.
You know, I remember I was around the trauma team one time when one of our campus professors had been here for a while, very nationally, internationally known person, fell down some stairs out by the library and got brought in. I remember the trauma surgeon saying, "Everybody out. We follow the protocol. We do great. I don't need a lot of advice from those of you who are never here." That's kind of the same thing, isn't it?
It is exactly the same thing. Yeah. More people, more cooks in the kitchen equals more chaos.
Yeah, and we don't need chaos down there.
No.
Because this is very algorithm driven, and you guys are just like, we do this in a pattern that repeats itself, so we're always really good at it.
Correct.
Yeah, that's perfect. Okay, now did the mayor need immediate surgery?
He did not, fortunately.
Yeah, that's a great thing. Now, Mayor Skoog remembers waking up in the trauma unit where Robin works. So Robin, how many different disciplines are involved in the trauma care up there?
So many. It really is a team effort. We obviously work with people like spine, with orthopedics, our trauma team, but it's nurses, it's aides, it's therapists, it's our housekeepers, our dietary aides. Really everyone kind of comes together to make sure that our patients are getting the best care.
So you saw him make quite a bit of progress then when he was there, right?
Yeah, I did. It was really nice. He was on our unit for about 2 weeks. I remember that first day, you were having some trouble. You had a lot of pain, couldn't really get out of bed very much. And then he was kind of sitting at the edge of the bed for a couple days and then standing for a couple days. By the end of it, yeah, you were walking, you were going outside, getting to see the sunshine. It was, beautiful early September. And then, I mean, even me, I'm an Overland Park resident, so I'm a little biased, but I saw you at the tree lighting ceremony, and I was just excited to kind of see him standing up on stage doing what he does.
Did you go up to him at the ceremony and say, "Hey"?
I didn't. I thought about going up to you and Amy, but there were a lot of people. You had your grandkids, you had your family with you, so I just kind of, from afar, kind of got to be happy.
That's a great story. That's a great story. Now, Mayor Skoog, there must have been a period where you weren't sure about your ability to walk again. Tell us a little bit about that, and then deciding on how you needed spinal surgery.
Well, when we started, the initial evaluation was I probably didn't need surgery. So I spent 3 days sitting on the edge of the bed trying to stand up. And that's when I learned that I had no idea what pain was. I'd learned about pain in those 3 days trying to stand up. And so that's when you kind of question, right? I know I'm in the right place, I know I'm in the right hands, but what's the future?
Yeah, you don't want to live like that every day.
Yeah.
So you had to get somebody involved, and I think that may have been Dr. Brandon Carlson. Brandon was one of the orthopedic spine surgeons here at KU. So Brandon, what type of surgery did Mayor Skoo get, and what was the outcome like?
Yeah, so he has an interesting injury that we see a lot in high energy traumas. Motor vehicle accident is a classic story for what's called a thoracolumbar fracture.
And I think we have a scan of that.
Yeah, I think we're going to pull it up. And there you go. On the left side, you can see that there's that's his preoperative CAT scan. And one of those bones there, the third one from the bottom, is kind of flattened like a pancake. You can see it on 2 different views. And the reason that happened is during his accident, he was probably wearing a seatbelt and he gets bent over the seatbelt with high energy and it crushes that bone. Now these come in a lot of, like a whole spectrum of patterns, and some of them are stable, like we talked about when we first met. We try to get you up and move you, and if we don't have any problems in the legs or weakness or numbness or pain, many patients can mobilize in just a brace. But then some of them are not stable, and that was yours. And after we tried to mobilize, it really wasn't working well. So we were planning, and it's kind of interesting, the progression of his is a lot of these we can just put screws in the back. And we actually use minimally invasive techniques, and we're really lucky here at KU to have a robot that we use to place screws in people's backs through tiny little incisions. And I know he's wearing a suit today, but if you saw his back, he's got these little poke holes. And for us, that's great because the amount of trauma they go through for the surgery is much less. Their recovery's faster, things like that. So we made the plan to go to surgery and put the screws in, hold the thing still. I kind of describe it always to patients like a really good internal brace. And even before that surgery, we got another scan, and that fracture had really progressed. And so our conversation, there's a lot of conversation that happens with patients. And you can remember, you and your wife, your son, we talked a lot, and I said, you know, I really think that the front of the spine, which we call the anterior column, is compromised. And that'd be like taking out one of the foundational supports of your house. And so because of that, we had a second plan for a different surgery after the first one. So we had 2 surgeries. The first one was put the screws in the back, which took about an hour, hour and a half. Very little blood loss, and we tried to mobilize again, but it really wasn't working. Still had a lot of leg pain. If you go back to the scan, one of the spikes of bone that's sitting there is pushing on his nerves.
Oh, that doesn't sound good. That sounds painful.
Yeah, and that's what's causing the pain. And so when somebody has that, we really need to go back in, take that chunk of bone out of the spine canal where the nerves are. And that's what you see on that right picture is there's a very big piece of metal that kind of looks like a strut, and that's exactly what it is. And we put that in through his side on a different day. And the reason we didn't do them together is it could make a much longer surgery, number one, and I really need a specialized team to do a surgery like that, and I told him that. So we did that second surgery, and boy, after that, it was a big improvement. You really that leg pain disappeared. He started to mobilize quickly, and I can't remember how many days you were in the hospital after that, maybe 3 or 4.
3 or 4, yeah.
So you must have you probably felt that difference as soon as you woke up. You're like, holy cow, that's so much better.
It was instant, right?
Yeah.
The next day after the surgery, the pain was gone, right?
Yeah.
This pain that I've never felt before in my life was gone. And then I knew it was just a matter of rehab and
hard work
and recovery.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what kind of rehab is typically required for someone that had the type of injury Mayor Skoo does?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the surgical part itself, because of our techniques and the access to the technology, especially that robot, really the trauma from the operation is not the biggest thing to get through. It's probably the trauma from his injury. And so really the therapists on 51, they start them right away, and they start with a progressive protocol. They walk a little bit more every day. And then outside the hospital, we still work on those types of things. You probably had a walker for a while, and then once that sort of subsides, you can move on to not having a walker. And then really it's interesting, how long after your injury did you run into my dad? It was like a week or 2, right?
It was, yeah, a couple weeks.
So my dad works at an Overland Park facility, and he ran into him at an event, and he's up walking around like he didn't have surgery. And that's what's really impressive to me, to minimally invasive procedures, because my dad said, gosh, I didn't even know he went through that. And so really the long-term rehab, there's not a lot. It's just letting the body heal, letting that stabilize up front. And you're now about 7 months out, right?
Yeah.
And so you can kind of do anything you want at this point.
I describe to people I'm 90% recovered, right? And I just have to put in the more hard work to strengthen my legs and my core, which are the things I should have been doing before anyway. So
now the Royals have needed a little help with their bats. Are you ready for the call?
Well, I swung a golf club 10 times at Top Golf recently, and I don't think I'm quite ready yet, although he told me I could go back anytime I want.
All right.
So.
More rehab, that's all that is. So
it.
Dr. Carlson, I know we have to let you go. You have some surgery to get to. Before you go, any thoughts? Final thoughts?
No, it's just an honor to take care of someone like Curt. You know, him and his family are just so graceful, and they are so thankful for what we do. You know, we take care of everyone like Dr. Winfield said. We take care of everyone the same. But boy, to see the appreciation that comes out of him after such a traumatic thing. And we got the lucky part, right? It was an easy one to take care of for us, and some people are not as fortunate. Yeah. But boy, he works hard, and his family's appreciative, and you see all the appreciation in this room, and it's just really, really fun. It gives us a lot of inspiration and keeps us going. So thanks so much. I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
All right, and thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Good luck. And I guess, like I said, you have somebody to take care of again. So
yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. Appreciate everyone's time.
Thank you, man. All right, now, Mayor Skoo, are you still doing some physical therapy out there?
I am. I have a bunch of exercises I do at home, and Dr. Carlson was very clear from day one: is go walk, go walk, go walk.
Yeah, there you go.
So my wife and I are regular walkers. So
that's good. Well, that core strength you mentioned is very important, and the older we get, the more important it is, as I've learned my own self. So that's just a big darn deal. So you're still doing physical therapy. Now, Mayor Skoo, also tell us a little bit more. What was your inpatient experience like?
Well, that was the most surprising to me. You know, I'm at a point in my life where I've spent a significant time in hospitals. Luckily, I've never been a patient before. But between my parents and my in-laws and friends and other experiences, right? Always had good experience in hospitals, but what was unique about this was everybody who came into my room was excited to be there. Even if they weren't really excited to be there, they let me believe they were excited to be there. And as I mentioned before, my wife Amy works at St. Luke's in the blood bank. And so I have a little bit of insight into the life of a hospital, the shift work, right? And the routine. And having that kind of a great positive experience as a patient was meaningful. From house cleaning to food. I mean, across the board, of course, all the aides and the nurses and the doctors. Across the board, I just had an outstanding experience. And, you know, I mentioned in the event we had that having been around 20 years in public service, I've worked with firefighters and police officers and been in hospitals. And you know people are there and ready to help. But you really don't understand it until it's you in the ambulance or in the bed in the hospital, that you know that people are standing by every minute of every day to help you on your worst day. And that it was a powerful moment for me to have that realization. And that's why I talk about it a lot now, is so people understand why we spend so much on our fire department, on our police department, why it's so important that we have hospitals ready and professionals ready to help us when we need help.
I love that, to help you on your worst day.
Yeah.
That's very true. So now, I'm just going to turn to my team, or our team here for just a minute. And Robin, talk to us a little bit about what it feels like to be acknowledged like that.
It's kind of uncomfortable because, you know, sometimes we're not used to it.
Yeah.
I think we do what we do because we like to care for people, whether they recognize us or not. So when we get that recognition, it's always well received. I think particularly, you know, trauma is the #1 killer of people under the age of 45, and I think the public maybe doesn't know that. So trauma is important. Trauma care is very, very important, and we love to be able to do that and care for people. Like he said, we see them on their worst days. It's people who are being a mayor one day, and then all of a sudden they're a patient for 2 weeks, and we just kind of get to work with them kind of through that process. So getting that recognition, it's always really nice. I'm biased. I love my team. I think that they're great. So it's always wonderful when other people think so too.
It sounds like you got a little affirmation on that love thing, right? That's pretty darn good.
Yeah.
Tell, how does that feel?
I would agree it's a little bit unusual for us in that we don't tend to get a lot of thank yous. We don't need it. We love what we do. I absolutely love being a trauma surgeon, but it is very nice when someone goes out of their way, like Mayor Skoo did, to come and join us and say thank you, especially in such an open way. Yeah,
big darn deal, right? And not everything you do has a happy ending.
That's correct. That is correct.
How many people from a trauma like the one Mayor Skoo experienced, is there a sense that you would have of how many folks can recover to the extent that he has?
I would say that our functional recoveries are quite good overall. That said, I think you heard Dr. Carlson, this is a truly outstanding recovery. And I can't say that everybody gets to that point, but it is delightful when someone is motivated in the hospital to say, I'm going to get up and I'm going to get going and I'm going to do the therapy and all the rehab and all the things that I need to do to get better, because that really does lead to the best possible outcome.
Yeah, you bet. It takes a team.
It does.
It takes a team to do that, and we know that throughout medicine, right? Medicine is all about the team. All right, we're here to answer your questions. Send them in using the links on your screen, YouTube, Facebook, or email the Medical News Network. Let's check in with Doc Hawk. Hawkeye.
Hey.
Hey. Measles remain the biggest infectious disease story right now, which I guess is a good thing. I don't know. It should be a non-story, honestly.
Yeah,
so
it should be.
Now we know a case in Missouri, too.
Yeah, unfortunately, there is a case in Missouri. We don't know too much. Again, the patient was young, for what we understand, unvaccinated. Haven't been a lot of details released, except for those details. You know, we have to anticipate there will be more cases. And I am just saying that because we understand the data that supports the fact that vaccination rates across our country, and especially in our local communities, are decreased in general. So we have to expect more cases, unfortunately. We know that also Governor Kelly gave a press conference yesterday talking about the Kansas cases, as well as the continued need to endorse vaccination to get those vaccines in arms. This is a disease that was largely eliminated from the United States for local spread back in 2000. Unfortunately, we have now reverted. We know that there is just a large pushback and mistrust of science and medicine. And we just have to continue to provide the accurate information. We know the vaccine is safe, it is effective, and it can help reduce all of these problems, including death from this disease, including hospitalization from this disease as well.
I like my new button. Science is like magic, except it's real. I mean, that's right. Like the real fact of, around all this the people who want to create myths of science. But the fact is, the whole story you've heard this morning about this amazing recovery is all rooted in science, and without that, recovery doesn't happen.
Yeah, science, medicine, trials, again, having those altruistic goals of first, do no harm. And we have to continue to say that that is our goal in medicine, is first, do no harm. We know, again, the vaccine is safe, and then it's also the potential benefits. But I would say for our teams, too, that one of the toughest things that we do is probably accept that praise that has been given to us. And so I think for Dr. Winfield and his staff and everybody, that is good to be able to accept that with everything that they've done, for sure.
All right, looking forward to much more measles discussion next week when we have Dr. Greg Poland join us. Maybe we even get into a little bit of the discussion around who's actually going to have a recommendation for COVID vaccine going forward, maybe switching.
Yeah.
So if it weren't for measles, we might be focused on the tick season right now. How are those cases looking?
Yeah, I mean, so far, again, last year, anecdotally, I know that with myself and my practice and my partners, we did see a lot, especially in the later summer months, with things like ehrlichiosis and Rocky Mountain spotted fever. Those are tick-borne illnesses. Again, we don't have a lot of Lyme disease around here, despite what people say. We see from this data, from this chart, that there is an increase in emergency department visits. And I think that will only continue as the weather now is getting nice. We know that there really wasn't a lot of cold, a lot of hard freeze for those ticks as well, so they could be abundant this year as well. But what can we do to protect ourselves? It is very easy. Wearing light clothes so that you can see ticks, coming home and doing tick checks, but also, most importantly, is wearing insect spray to help reduce the chance that those ticks do get on you and do embed. So those are the very easy preventive measures that you can take, especially now as the weather's getting warm and people will be out in their gardens, be out hiking, doing things outdoors as well.
You know, the truth is that these are diseases you really don't want to have. You don't want to have measles. And if you get neurologic involvement in the measles, it's kind of a really bad prognosis and no real therapy. Ehrlichiosis is a bad disease. Yeah. And again, if you get in the hospital with ehrlichiosis, that's not a great prognosis. Same thing true for Rocky Mountain spotted fever. I had 3 patients with lung transplant or CF last year with ehrlichiosis. It's like, Yeah, okay, guys, make sure you spray down. Go ahead and get vaccinated. Really, science is good. It is and it does help folks. Right. Okay, we know many of you have questions. Let's head to Studio B with the awesome Alexis Stilson. Good morning, Alexis.
Good morning, and Stu has a question for Mayor Skoo. Mayor, Stu wants to know if you had to handle any mayoral business while you were hospitalized.
I heard people ask for checks. Is that how that go for you on the payments?
Well, you know, I did have some city business to do while I was there. Once, you know, when I was laying in my bed, I was not in a lot of pain, and I wasn't overly medicated, so I was able to have conversations and talk with folks and move things along. And
now, a lot of people would tell us after those first few days of being in the hospital, they don't always remember. So do you remember what you said in those conversations?
Oh, yeah.
That's good. That's a good outcome.
Yeah, I was on.
You're on. All right, awesome.
And then after the surgeries, right, for the next few days, again, the pain was gone. The medication was even less at that point, and continued some important conversations. So we just announced a big economic development deal with a new large employer, and part of those conversations were happening while I was in the hospital.
All right, see, business, I like that.
Amy has a question for Dr. Winfield. Amy wants to know, what percentage of Dr. Winfield's surgeries are car crashes?
Well, I would say that fortunately enough, most traumas do not require emergency surgery. And the statistics would point out that gravity is undefeated as a cause for trauma. So falls are our most common mechanism of trauma. But car crashes are number 2. And worldwide, road traffic injuries are the leading cause of death for people between the ages of 1 and 46 years of age. Again, fortunately, most of these folks are not requiring surgery when they arrive at the trauma center. However, they are a leading cause of mortality worldwide.
Is it because of better technology, like airbags and more people wearing seatbelts?
Certainly. So you can see, if you look at a trend of motor vehicle fatalities from the 1960s up until today, it is a continuous downward trend of deaths. And that is because of improvements to roadway safety, improvements to motor vehicle safety, and things like drinking and driving laws. All of these things reduce motor vehicle fatalities and have had a dramatic effect on public health in the United States and worldwide.
And just to say, the design of automobiles is so different than it was in the 60s. And today they're just a box on wheels. And man, the way they design cars to behave in a crash now is pretty impressive.
It's amazing, absolutely amazing. Really a remarkable change for the good of public health.
Marie has a question about measles. She has a couple of questions.
Okay.
Marie writes, how afraid should we be of measles? How many people die every year from measles across America compared to this year?
You know, Alexis, we're going to have this exact conversation with Dr. Greg Pullen next week, and he is an international expert in vaccination and knows a great deal about measles. I will tell you that no one should ever die of measles, because if you're vaccinated, that's not going to happen. And the problems we have right now are in unvaccinated patients. And it's hard to know how many die every year, because normally no one dies of measles when we had more vaccination. Now that we don't, you get below 85 or 90% of children being vaccinated, then the odds begin to rise. And so if you live in a community where there are fewer people vaccinated or fewer kids vaccinated, the likelihood does go up. If you live in a place where most people are vaccinated, the likelihood is almost 0. And the answer is vaccination works. All right, this has been a great discussion. And I am really, really appreciative of all of our guests here, especially Mayor Skoo, because, man, you're out here telling your story, and there's always just a little bit of a vulnerable moment, but it's great that you came, and we really appreciate that. Let's get final thoughts before we go. Robin, I'm going to start with you.
Again, as an Overland Park resident, it was an honor. I didn't know he was the mayor until a couple days into it. But Overland Park is a place that's really special to me and my husband. We love downtown Overland Park. When we're having bad days, we go to Thompson Park. Like, that's just what we do. So it was just been a joy. And Amy, his wife, was wonderful. And we just really appreciate you appreciating us.
Yeah, that's a good darn thing, right?
Yeah.
When you're up there trying. Wait, final thoughts to you, Dr. Winfield.
I would just say that Mayor Skoo is a true success story. We are fortunate in that we see success stories here every single day. We would like not to see you in the trauma center. However, we stand here at the ready 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, ready to treat folks who have been involved in, as Robin said, the worst day of their life. So we are delighted to be able to do that for folks, and again, really excited to see what a great outcome you've had.
Mayor Skoo, final thought.
Yeah, well, I'd just like to speak to everybody out there involved in the medical profession that it's not about me, it's about who I speak for all the patients who come through your hospital and through our medical systems here in the Kansas City region. We are so blessed to have people like you willing to serve our community, and you make an impact every day. I tell my wife works in the blood bank at St. Luke's. I go, all you do is save people's lives every day, right? That's all you do, and it is so important. And so I just want everybody out there to know that you are appreciated, and that if you haven't heard thank you lately, let me be the one to thank you for everybody's lives you've touched. And I really appreciate the opportunity to be here with you. Thank you for how you cared for me and my family, but really just to be a voice for all the patients out there who you have helped. And so thank you for the opportunity to be here.
I want to say thank you to all of our audience for listening to this program today. It is a joy to have these great folks here and to be able to have this type of program which has a happy ending. We're not always blessed with happy endings, but sometimes that combination of faith, hope, and science is pretty powerful. And people could deny the reality of it until it hits them, until they're the one. And suddenly when you're the one, you want the help. But that's help that is here because people work really hard and because science is real. And it does help advance us, whether it's in the design of automobiles, first responders, how a care team takes care of patients on the floors, right? We work hard at that. People study that a lot to see what is the best thing. And that environment, that culture here at KU, that's no mistake, man. That's by design with great people thinking, we can do this best and have it be world class. And we appreciate your testimony today because at the end of the day, it does take all of us. I like to tell people that, medicine is not a spectator sport. And it's not an individual sport. It's really not a sport. It's a team effort using facts, using care, using love, using faith, hope, and then, of course, science together to help all of us improve. We'll see you next week.
Subscribe to our Morning Medical Update and Open Mics with Dr. Stites podcasts. Now, everywhere podcasts are available.